Charles found Lucas crying in the garage, not the kind of cry from a skinned knee, but something deeper, muffled by small hands. The boy was alone, hunched on a stool.
Lucas? Hey, buddy. What's going on? Talk to me.
Lucas didn't look up. His sobs only grew louder, his shoulders trembling under the glow of the workbench lamp.
You can tell me anything. You know that. Whatever it is, I am here. I am not going anywhere.
The boy lifted his head, eyes red and swollen. His fingers still clutched a tiny model car wheel, knuckles white.
He tests my memory. He says it's so I remember what I did wrong.
Charles's blood turned cold. The words hung in the warm, oil-scented air like a ghost.
With a belt. He hits me and asks if I remember. Over and over.
Charles took a breath that felt like swallowing glass. He reached for the model car on the bench, his fingers finding the familiar weight. They finished the car in silence. The only sound, the click of tiny plastic pieces snapping into place. Charles kept his voice steady as he helped Lucas into the car, the boy's silence heavier than any scream.
We'll head home now. Pal, your mom's probably wondering what adventure we got into today.
Can I just not talk for a bit, Grandpa?
By the time they pulled into Emily's driveway, dusk had settled, the porch light casting long shadows.
He's a little tired, Emily. Long day of model cars. I'll call you tomorrow.
Thanks, Dad. He always loves Sundays with you. Drive safe.
Inside his own silent house, Charles stood in his study, the echo of Lucas's whisper still burning in his ears.
Henry, it's Charles. I need you to meet me tomorrow. It's about my grandson. It can't wait.
The voice on the other end asked only two questions. When and where? Charles hung up and stared at the framed photo of Lucas on his desk. The fight had just begun. The next morning, Charles sat across from Henry in a leather-backed chair, the office smelling of old books and resolve.
Tell me everything, Charles. From the beginning.
It's Justin. Lucas told me he uses a belt, calls it a memory test. My grandson is terrified.
We need documentation before we move. A private investigator. A confidential medical exam. Now.
Do it. Whatever it costs.
Henry slid a retainer across the mahogany desk, and Charles signed without reading a single line. Within the hour, Diane, a private investigator with 20 years of family court experience, was on retainer.
I know a pediatrician who'll see Lucas off the books. Tomorrow at 9. Keep him calm.
I'll tell Emily it's a routine checkup. She won't suspect a thing.
Charles walked out of the office with a file and a grim sense of purpose. The machinery was in motion. The next morning, Charles picked up Lucas under the guise of a routine physical. Emily waved them off without a second thought.
Just a checkup, Lucas. Nothing to worry about.
In the exam room, Dr. Keller's practiced hands moved to Lucas's back. The boy flinched before she even touched him.
Does this hurt, Lucas? You can tell me the truth.
No, ma'am. I am okay.
Then she lifted his shirt. Purple and yellow marks striped his ribs in an unmistakable pattern.
Charles, these are consistent with repeated belt trauma. I have to document this.
Do what you need to do. He won't be going back to that house.
Dr. Keller completed her notes in silence. When she handed Charles the sealed report, her expression was grim. Charles walked out, gripping Lucas's hand and the envelope. One piece of the puzzle was locked in place. Diane parked her SUV beneath a sycamore tree, her camera resting on the passenger seat. The lens pointed at Justin and Emily's front door. The house was quiet until Justin's sedan pulled into the driveway. Lucas came out to meet him, and Diane's finger hovered over the shutter.
What did I tell you about leaving your bike out?
I forgot. I'm sorry.
You forgot. Then maybe you need a reminder.
Diane's camera clicked rapidly, capturing Lucas's wince, Justin's sneer. She had the first piece.
Just a little more. I need the belt. Charles, I've got photos. He's rough with the boy, but it's not enough yet. Give me another day.
An encrypted email arrived minutes later. Charles opened it and stared at the grainy photo of Justin's iron grip on his grandson. His jaw set hard. The photographs were a start. But he needed more, much more, before he could act. 2 evenings later, Diane heard what she'd been waiting for. Through an open window, Justin's voice sliced the dusk.
I told you to clean up the garage before I got home. Did you forget that too?
A pause. Then the unmistakable crack of a belt, followed by Lucas's muffled cry. 10 minutes later, Lucas walked out of the house, head down, eyes red. Diane's recorder captured everything. She compiled a full report, time-stamped notes, the audio file, and hit send on the encrypted email. Charles opened the file in his study, the audio crackling through his speakers. His face went pale. He listened to the belt strike 3 times, each crack a hammer blow. Then Lucas's voice, I am sorry. Charles tore off his reading glasses, his hands trembling. He reached for his phone.
Henry, it's Charles. I have everything. Meet me at the courthouse tomorrow morning.
The line went silent for a beat. Then Henry's voice. I'll call Judge Thomas. Charles arrived at Emily's door with a manila folder, the evidence pressing against his chest like a stone.
Emily, we need to talk. It's about Lucas. It can't wait.
Dad, it's late. What's so important you couldn't call first?
Look at these, then tell me I am overreacting.
Emily took the photograph of Justin's grip on Lucas's shoulder. Her face hardened, not with horror, but with denial.
This is staged. Justin would never hurt Lucas. You are trying to break us apart.
I have medical records, audio of the belt. Listen to it, Emily. That's your son crying.
Get out of our lives, Dad. I won't let you destroy my family.
I am doing this for Lucas. If you can't see that, then I'll fight for him alone.
Charles picked up the folder and walked out, the door closing behind him like a verdict. Within 10 minutes of Charles leaving, Justin answered a frantic call from Emily. His expression darkened.
He had a folder? Don't worry, I'll shut this down before it goes anywhere.
He hung up and immediately dialed Charles, his jaw tight with controlled fury.
Stay away from my family, old man, or there will be consequences you won't like.
Charles ended the call without a word and sent Henry a 2-word text. Move now. Within the hour, Henry secured an emergency ex parte hearing with Judge Thomas for that afternoon. Charles sped toward the courthouse, the envelope of evidence riding shotgun in the passenger seat. In his pocket, a business card from a police officer friend. A backup plan if things went sideways. Neither man knew that within hours, the machinery of the court would decide Lucas's fate. Justin stared out his office window, a cold certainty settling in his chest. He would not lose control of his house. Charles entered the courthouse, the manila envelope of evidence held tight against his side like a shield.
Charles, I wish we were meeting under any other circumstances.
Charles placed the envelope on the desk without a word. Judge Thomas opened it and his face grew pale.
This is bad, Charles. Very bad.
He picked up his pen and signed the emergency custody order, the scratch of nib on paper the only sound in the room.
Take this to the school. Pick him up now. The warrant will be served within hours.
Charles nodded, his throat too tight for words. He took the signed order, the paper still warm from the printer.
It's done.
It's done. I am going to get him now.
They parted ways at the courthouse steps. Charles headed for his car, the order secure in his jacket, his mind already racing toward Lucas's school. At Justin's office, the door opened without a knock. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside. Justin looked up from his desk, his cold sneer freezing into disbelief. They read him his rights and snapped the handcuffs over his wrists. The warrant was signed. Across town, Charles walked into the elementary school with the custody order in hand.
Lucas, come with me, buddy. Everything's going to be okay now.
Are we going to your house? Is Mom okay with this?
We'll work all that out later. Right now, you just need a safe place.
Lucas hesitated, then reached up and took his grandfather's outstretched hand. That evening, in Charles's guest room, Lucas placed his worn stuffed dinosaur on the pillow and opened his small suitcase.
You are safe now, Lucas. I promise. No one will ever hurt you again.
The next morning, Emily's fists pounded on Charles's front door, her voice already cracking.
Dad, open this door. You had Justin arrested and you stole my son.
Charles stepped outside, closing the door behind him, so Lucas wouldn't hear.
How could you do this to me? Justin is my husband. You are ripping my family apart.
Inside, Lucas pressed his face to the window, his small hands flat against the glass.
Emily, he was beating Lucas with a belt. You saw the photos. You heard the recording.
You've turned my own son against me. You are a monster.
I am sorry, Em, truly, but he comes first. He will always come first.
Emily collapsed onto the porch railing, her sobs raw and broken. Charles turned and went back inside, leaving her alone. The door clicked shut 3 days after the arrest. While Charles and Henry prepared for the upcoming permanent custody hearing, Diane's encrypted email pinged into Henry's inbox.
Diane sent something. Sit down, Charles.
Emily. Justin says Lucas forgot his chores again. He's going to test him tonight. Justin, good. He has to learn. Weeks earlier, Emily wrote, he's been quiet all day. Maybe remind him what happens when he talks back. Justin replied, I'll handle it. Charles pushed back from the desk, his face ashen as the weight of the words settled.
She knew. All this time, she knew.
This is willful neglect. We can file for permanent custody and argue for termination of her parental rights.
Do it.
Henry nodded and began drafting the motion immediately. The second legal battle had begun. Outside the law office window, the sun was setting, but for Charles, the day had just grown immeasurably darker. The family court hearing began with a stillness that pressed on every chest. Emily's attorney rose first, his questions aimed at Charles's fitness. At 72, Mr. Reeves, how do you expect to keep up with a traumatized 9-year-old? The room held its breath.
I raised Emily, didn't I? I can certainly raise him.
I'd like to speak with Lucas in my chambers. This court stands in recess.
Lucas walked down the corridor with the judge, his small sneakers barely making a sound on the marble floor.
Lucas, where do you feel safest right now?
With Grandpa. Mom knew. She didn't stop him.
The judge's kind eyes glistened behind his glasses. He closed the session with a heavy sigh.
The temporary order will remain in effect. I'm scheduling a full evidentiary hearing in 2 weeks.
Charles took Lucas's hand and walked out into the gray afternoon. The final decision, still a storm on the horizon. 2 weeks later, the final hearing opened with the clinical testimony of Dr. Keller.
The bruising was consistent with a leather belt, applied with enough force to leave marks for over a week.
Diane followed, and the courtroom fell into a stunned silence as she played the audio recording. The crack of the belt echoed through the speakers, followed by Lucas's small, broken cries. Then Charles took the stand, his hand resting on the Bible.
I promised that boy he would never be hurt again. I intend to keep that promise.
Emily's attorney attempted to cast doubt on his memory, but Charles remained steady.
I remember every word he said. I'll never forget.
This court will recess. I will deliver my ruling this afternoon.
The courtroom emptied into a heavy, expectant silence. After the recess, Emily took the stand, her face pale and her hands already trembling.
Mrs. Reeves, do you recognize these text messages?
Those are private. You had no right.
Henry read aloud. Justin says Lucas forgot his chores again. He's going to test him tonight. Then the reply, good. He has to learn.
I was just agreeing with my husband.
You were instructing him. Remind him what happens when he talks back. Those are your words.
Emily's composure shattered. She put her face in her hands, sobs breaking free.
I knew. I was scared he would hurt me too. I didn't know how to stop it.
Charles watched from the gallery, his face a blend of pity and unyielding resolution.
This court will take a short recess.
In the quiet of the recess, Emily found Charles in an empty conference room, her eyes red and desperate.
Daddy, please. I'll leave Justin. I'll do anything. Just don't take my baby away.
It's not about leaving him, Emily. It's about what you allowed. He was terrified.
I was scared too. I didn't know how to stop it. Please, I am your daughter.
You are my daughter, and I love you. But I love Lucas more than my own life, and I won't let him go back there.
He pulled a folded drawing from his jacket. Lucas's crayon picture of him and his grandpa, labeled My family.
He drew this last night. He asked if he could stay with me forever, and I promised him he would never be hurt again.
That's my child.
They stood in a terrible silence until the bailiff's voice echoed down the marble hall. Charles walked out first, leaving Emily clutching the drawing. The final ruling was minutes away. Judge Thomas reconvened the court, only to announce he would deliver the written ruling at 9 the next morning. That evening, Charles and Lucas sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the air heavy with unspoken fears.
Grandpa, can I stay with you forever?
We'll see what the judge says, buddy. But I promise you this. I'll fight for you no matter what happens.
Lucas slid off his chair and wrapped his small arms around Charles's chest, holding on as if the world might pull them apart. Later, in the soft lamplight of the bedroom, Charles sat on the edge of the bed, a storybook open in his lap. Lucas's eyes drooped, his stuffed dinosaur pressed under his chin, the day's tension finally melting away.
Time to sleep, little man. I'll be right here.
Charles pulled the blanket up to Lucas's chin and watched the boy's breathing slow into a deep, untroubled sleep. He stayed there a long while, listening to the silence, hoping the morning would bring the answer Lucas deserved. The next morning, the courtroom filled with a silence so deep it seemed to swallow sound. Judge Thomas unfolded a single page.
I find Emily Reeves willfully neglected her son, Lucas. The evidence is overwhelming and unambiguous. Custody is awarded to Charles Reeves, and parental rights of Emily Reeves are hereby terminated. This court is adjourned.
A raw wail tore from Emily. She slumped forward on the table, her hands covering her face, as if to shield herself from a world that had crumbled. Charles turned and pulled Lucas close. The boy's face was pressed against his cardigan, his small body trembling.
It's okay, Grandpa. I am home.
Henry gathered the papers with steady hands, his expression grave but satisfied. Justice had been served, but the cost was etched on every face.
You are safe now, Lucas, forever.
Lucas looked up, his eyes still wet but no longer afraid. He took his grandfather's hand, and they walked out of the courtroom together. Behind them, the fading echoes of a broken family settled into the marble floors. They stepped out of the courthouse into a bright morning, the sun warming their faces. Lucas squinted up at Charles, a fragile smile breaking through the exhaustion. The drive home was quiet, but for the first time in weeks, the silence felt peaceful. That weekend, Charles opened the garage door and looked at the space with new eyes.
Can I paint my room blue, Grandpa?
Charles smiled and handed him a roller. Together, they coated the walls in a shade of sky. Lucas arranged his model cars on the new shelf, his small hands careful and proud. The model car they had built that first terrible day now sat on the shelf, a quiet monument.
This is my room, Grandpa. Really mine.
Charles pulled him close, the scent of fresh paint mingling with a quiet certainty that they were finally home. A few weeks later, Charles walked Lucas to his new school. The boy's hand was sweaty in his own. Lucas hesitated at the gate, then joined a group of kids kicking a soccer ball. He looked back once and smiled. After school, they played catch in the backyard, the baseball arcing through the golden afternoon, Lucas's laughter ringing out for the first time in months. Charles leaned against the porch railing, watching Lucas field grounders. The boy's joy was a balm to his old heart. That evening, Lucas slid a crayon drawing across the kitchen table. 2 stick figures under a yellow sun, labeled, "My Family."
This is my family now. Grandpa. Just us.
At bedtime, Charles sat on the edge of the bed, a storybook forgotten in his hand as Lucas spoke.
Grandpa, thank you for saving me.
You saved yourself, buddy. I just helped.
He kissed Lucas's forehead and turned out the light, leaving the room in a peaceful dark. Months passed, and a new notification glowed on Charles's phone. Lucas's school play, 7 p.m. tonight. Later, they slid into the same worn booth at the diner, the ghosts of old tears replaced by the smell of pancakes.
I remembered every line, Grandpa. And my tree didn't tip over.
Charles grinned, reaching across to wipe a dab of syrup from Lucas's chin.
Can we always do this? even when I am a rock in the background.
Always, buddy, I'll be there. Front row and front table.
They walked home through the orange dusk, their shadows stretching long on the pavement. Lucas chattered about the set design, and Charles listened to every word. He looked down at their clasped hands and felt the quiet, steady rhythm of a life remade. At home, he placed the school program next to Lucas's baby photo on the mantel. 2 moments, 1 story. Later that evening, Charles picked up the new framed photo of Lucas at the school play and placed it next to the baby picture. 2 faces of the same boy, separated by years of pain and healing, now standing together on the mantel. He glanced out the window and saw Lucas in the backyard, a glass jar in his hand, chasing the first fireflies of summer. Charles stepped out onto the porch, the screen door creaking softly behind him.
Look, Grandpa, I caught one. It's glowing right here.
I see it, buddy. That's a good one.
They sat together on the porch swing, the jar between them, a tiny light pulsing in the deepening dusk. Neither spoke, but the silence held everything that words couldn't. Safety, belonging, and a love that had been tested and had held. The fireflies multiplied, stitching the twilight with points of gold, as their silhouettes faded into the softening sky. And in the quiet, a new story began. Not one of pain, but of afternoons, in the garage, pancakes at the diner, and a boy who finally found his way home.